Spacecraft successfully landed on the moon, but perhaps it was too late, and something of that original name lingered, because we now know that Luna Coffin was a much more apt name for the ill-omened Luna 25. I'm Alex Molan, and you're watching ASRAM. Join us today as we explore the fate of Russia's first moon mission since 1976, for the country that once led the world in the space race. What exactly went wrong? Although we often look at NASA or ESA missions here, at ASRAM, Russia's space program has historically been quite the powerhouse back when Russia was part of the USSR. It was the Soviet Union's launching of Sputnik 1, the first artificial satellite, that triggered the space race in 1957. And for a time the Soviet space program went from strength to strength. It was the Soviet Union that put the first man into space, and the first woman, the first multi-person crew, the first dog their rockets escaped. The Earth-Moon system first impacted the moon, first orbited the moon, first took photos of the far side of the moon first. Soviet cosmonauts did the first spacewalk. The USSR launched the first space station to the eyes of many, and to the pleasure of Soviet leadership. USSR was winning the space race. But beneath the surface, not everything was going as smoothly as it appeared. The Soviet Union also saw the first death during a space mission, when the re-entry capsule's parachute of cosmonaut Vladimir Karov failed to open on his re-entry to Earth. The only 3 men to have died in space were a crew of Soviet cosmonauts visiting that first-ever space station. Soviet launches were plagued with failures but eager to look good in the eyes of the world, particularly compared to its rival the US. The USSR simply didn't report any of its fail. Luna missions. It pretended any rocket that didn't make it out of the atmosphere was never intended to be a moon mission at all. In reality, only about 34% of Soviet moon missions ended in success, in comparison to America's 60% success rate on equivalent missions. America landed the first man on the moon in 1969, and after that crowning achievement, both superpowers seemed to lose interest in continuing the race, refocusing their space programs towards non-lunar pursuits by the mid-1970s. Soviet cosmonauts never set foot on the moon itself. The USSR canceled any of its plans to do so, as the endeavor was ultimately seen as too expensive. Perhaps more importantly, what was the point of going if you were only going to get there second? But with the turn of the millennium, and since the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, the world's interest in going to the moon has been rekindled. Scientists realized that the moon would make a good stepping stone for human space missions to Mars, due to its plentiful resources such as newly discovered water ice, ideal for rocket fuel air and water, and low-gravity resources on the moon, began to attract the attention of businesses for economic reasons. And nations began to consider setting up permanent bases on its surface as a way of turning a profit. And of course, there is still a lot of science to be done there, attracting those who wish to learn more about the processes by which the moon formed and the cycles that govern it. Russia's old rival, the USA, rose to dust off their space programs. America started its Constellation program in 2005, declaring their aim to go back to the moon. But now other nations were getting in on the ACT to India, who had not been part of the first race for the moon. Began it Chandran program for lunar exploration. In 2000, governments across the world believed that the benefits of going to the moon in this second rush were so great, nations who didn't go would in some way fall behind. In the words of Israel Chairman Krishna Swami Ishtar Rangan, "It is not whether we can afford it, it is whether we can afford to ignore it." Russia did not intend to be left behind. It was eager to pick up the Soviet legacy of space exploration. In fact, it beat its competitors to the punch. Russia had already begun thinking about the new Luna mission as early as the mid-1990s, when scientists Meek Mavro and Eric Galov put forward their proposals to Roscosmos, Russia's newly restructured space agency. Their Luna Glob mission was approved and was initially intended to have a lot more parts to it, including a penetrator for seismic sounding, a lander, and an orbiter. However, the project initially did not have enough political will behind it. It faced budget cuts. After the Russian financial crisis of 1998, when the ruble lost over two-thirds of its value in 3 weeks and was in delays that repeatedly knocked it back and put it on hold, the penetrator and orbiter was scrapped, leaving just the lander as the plan for the mission was reimagined to make it more economical. Russia wanted to be a nationally recognized player in the space game, but didn't want to spend massive amount of its budget on the plan. In 2000, Russia only invested 20 billion rubles, or about 700 million US in its space industry, compared to the USA's $15.6 billion. One way to work around this was to collaborate with other nations. Russia initially tried to work with India on the Chandrayaan 2 mission in 2007. Luna 25 would fly with India's orbiter and be the mission's lander. However, this low spending ultimately punished them, and Russian scientists were unable to get the lander's technology working in time for the initial 2013 launch date. India eventually abandoned the collaboration and completed Chandra and 2 on their own. Russia was left trying to get Luna 25 to the moon surface solo. India's Chandra 2 lander crashed into the moon, but